In the heart of an old, decaying mansion on the outskirts of a small town, a group of teenagers gathered one stormy night. The house, long abandoned, was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of its former inhabitants. The legends spoke of a wealthy family, the Ravenscrofts, who met a tragic and mysterious end over a century ago. Intrigued by the dark tales and seeking a thrill, the teenagers decided to conduct a séance using a Ouija board they found in the dusty attic. The group consisted of 5 friends: Alex, Sarah, Mike, Jenny, and Tom. As they ascended the creaking stairs, their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper and cobweb-covered corners. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over them. They reached the attic, a vast, dimly lit space filled with old furniture draped in white sheets, and the Ouija board laid out in the center of the room. The board was an antique, with ornate lettering and a planchette that seemed to move of its own accord. They gathered around it, lighting candles to create a circle of light in the darkness. The wind howled outside, and thunder rumbled in the distance, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. They placed their fingers on the planchette, and Alex, the bravest of the group, began the ritual. As they concentrated, the planchette began to move slowly. It spelled out a name: Elizabeth. The teenagers exchanged nervous glances. Elizabeth Ravenscroft, the youngest daughter of the family, had been a mere child when the tragedy struck. They continued to ask questions, and the board spelled out fragmented responses, hinting at a hidden truth about the Ravenscroft family. The candles flickered, and a chill filled the room. Shadows seemed to dance around them, and the sense of being watched grew stronger. The planchette moved more erratically, spelling out words like murder, betrayal, and revenge. Each answer made their hearts pound faster, and the fear in their eyes was palpable. Suddenly, the candles were extinguished by an unseen force, plunging the room into darkness. Panic set in, and they fumbled for their flashlights. When the lights flickered back on, they saw a figure standing in the corner of the attic. It was a woman, dressed in a tattered, old-fashioned gown, her face obscured by long, matted hair. The air grew colder still, and a malevolent energy filled the room. The figure began to move towards them, her presence heavy with anger and sorrow. The teenagers were paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. The woman reached the edge of the circle of light cast by their flashlights and stopped. Her head tilted slightly, as if observing them. Then, with a sudden, violent motion, she vanished, and the room returned to its previous eerie stillness. Breathing heavily, they tried to make sense of what had just happened. They decided to end the séance and leave the mansion immediately. However, when they tried to lift their fingers from the planchette, they found that they couldn't. It was as if an unseen force held them in place. The planchette moved once more, spelling out a final, chilling message. "You are not alone." Panic surged through them as they realized they had awakened something far more sinister than they had anticipated. The planchette moved again, this time spelling out, "Leave." Desperate, they struggled to free themselves, and finally, their fingers broke free from the board. They grabbed their flashlights and bolted down the stairs, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the empty mansion. As they reached the front door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. They tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew thick with a suffocating darkness, and whispers filled the room, voices speaking in an ancient, forgotten language. They could feel the presence of multiple entities around them, closing in. Sarah spotted a side door and motioned for the group to follow. They sprinted towards it, their footsteps echoing like a drumbeat of terror. Just as they reached the door, it swung open on its own, revealing the stormy night outside. They dashed through, the cold rain pelting their faces as they ran away from the mansion. Once they were a safe distance away, they turned back to see the mansion looming ominously in the darkness. The whispers and shadows seemed to retreat, but the feeling of being watched persisted. They vowed never to return, but the encounter had left a mark on each of them, a deep-seated fear that would haunt them for years to come. In the weeks that followed, strange occurrences plagued the teenagers. Sarah woke up one night to find the word, "Leave," written on her mirror in condensation. Mike's dog would bark furiously at empty corners of his house. Alex discovered old, yellowed photographs of the Ravenscroft family in his backpack, despite having never taken them from the mansion. Desperate for answers, Alex delved into the history of the Ravenscroft family. He learned that Elizabeth had been accused of witchcraft, and that the family had been shunned by the townspeople. Her father, desperate to prove their innocence, had conducted séances to communicate with the spirits. It was during one of these rituals that the tragedy occurred, leaving the family cursed and their spirits bound to the mansion. The realization struck Alex like a cold wave. They had not just contacted Elizabeth, but the entire tormented family. The spirits, still seeking justice or revenge, had latched onto the teenagers. Determined to break the curse, Alex gathered his friends once more. They needed to return to the mansion and set things right. Armed with knowledge and a sense of purpose, they entered the mansion again. The air was thick with tension, and the storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within. They reached the attic and set up the Ouija board, this time with a clear intention to free the spirits. The séance began, and the planchette moved almost immediately. "Help us," it spelled out. Alex, speaking to the spirits, asked how they could set them free. The board responded with a single word: truth. Piece by piece, the story unfolded. Elizabeth had been framed for witchcraft by a jealous neighbor. Her father had tried to summon spirits to prove her innocence, but in doing so, he had unleashed a vengeful entity that led to their deaths. The teenagers listened, their hearts heavy with the weight of the past. Determined to bring closure, they decided to conduct a final ritual, one of forgiveness and release. They lit candles, recited prayers, and offered apologies on behalf of the town that had wronged the Ravenscrofts. The air grew lighter, and the oppressive darkness began to lift. As the ritual concluded, the candles flickered and then extinguished softly, as if a breath had blown them out. The planchette moved one last time, spelling out, "Thank you." The teenagers felt a wave of calm wash over them, and the room seemed brighter, almost peaceful. They left the mansion for the final time, the oppressive weight lifted from their shoulders. The storm had passed, and the night was eerily calm. The feeling of being watched was gone, replaced by a sense of tranquility. The spirits had found their peace, and so had the teenagers. Years later, the mansion remained abandoned, a relic of the past. But the legend of the Ravenscroft family and the brave teenagers who set them free lived on, a cautionary tale of the dangers of meddling with the unknown and the power of seeking the truth.